Hi guys, this is Lindy. I guess it's story time again. After I left World, what did I do? Well, number one, I had worked with all our CPAs for 10 years, and they recommended me to small businesses in my area to set up their accounting systems because I was a expert in Peachtree and pretty good at QuickBooks, but I knew Peachtree. And a lot of small businesses had Peachtree as well as QuickBooks. But for some reason, they just run into a real problem getting a good bookkeeper or a good accountant. And the CPAs like to bring somebody in they know that can do the work. So I became an independent contractor, and I started picking up small businesses and setting up their accounting systems. I also started with a small company. It was an expo company, Winnett Expos, and they put on expos, learning expos for computer companies like Novell, doctors, conventions, all kinds of things that they would set up in Las Vegas or around the country. And I started with them, taking reservations and inputting, and until I could build up my independent business, as well as I decided that I wanted to start my own little vintage antique store. And I was looking at one to buy out, the very tiny store, and I researching that to see if I could do that. So I started doing all these small businesses. I did a print shop in Napa. I did a cork company. They created corks, it's synthetic corks for the wineries in Napa. I did a bottling company. They import-export. They imported bottles for olive oil, plus they made olive oil in their back room, which wasn't kosher. What else? Nonprofits. I did a couple of those, one in Oakland and one in Vallejo. And I just can't remember all the little companies I did. So I set these companies up. I trained their bookkeepers or their husbands or wives or whoever they wanted to do their books. And I would come monthly and verify everything was running okay. In the meantime, at Winnett, I was helping them with a lot more things, and they were starting to ask me to go to the shows and help put on the shows, which I did. So I traveled to Las Vegas, I'd say 4 weeks out of the year, maybe 5, and putting on shows with the setups, doing the setups, and making sure that all the customers were happy and collecting the money, etc., etc., etc. I decided that I did that for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. And I was trying to build up my business, and I ran across a woman in my tiny little shop. I started it. It wasn't making money. Wasn't making money, guys. I started this little shop. I moved like 3 times. I'm trying to remember when I started the shop. And I moved in with my brother and sister-in-law. Big mistake. Big mistake. They had vintage clothing too, so we didn't jive. So I ended up moving out of there and moving into a large shop in Napa. And at the same time, I got a phone call from a woman who had a Victorian home, 2-story or 3-story, I think it was 2-story, Victorian home, that all she had in it was vintage. She had been collecting, she was in her 80s, and this was in the, I want to say early 90s. She was in her 80s, and she started collecting in the 30s and 40s. And she had a whole house. No one lived in that house but her vintage clothing and her antique collection. The whole house was a museum. Mannequins, drawers and cabinets, clothing everywhere, everywhere. And I took on her whole house. I moved it all out, put it into my shop, and sold these items for her. Now, over time, I'm just saying this was my true beginning to vintage clothing. At the same time, I decided that I wanted to take a month off and drive cross country and meet other dealers in vintage clothing so that I could set up a network and I could have vintage clothing. I would have people sending me boxes of vintage clothing, which I ended up doing. So all of this was, it was chaos. It was chaos, scrambling around, trying to make a living. And in the middle of all of it, guys, in the middle of all of it, I was loading my truck up to do a vintage clothing show in San Francisco. It was raining. I had rented a U-Haul, and I fell out of the U-Haul in the rain, slipped and fell, and broke my elbow. No show for quite a while. It was pretty, yeah. And that was, I spent 9 hours in emergency with a broken elbow, in tremendous pain. I was in so much pain, you have no idea. And finally, when your pain gets to be so much, I think you just go nuts. I just started screaming, help, why aren't you helping me? Oh my goodness, they couldn't get me out of that room fast enough and into a private room where they, want the x-ray, and just the pain. And that was a really bad experience. They took everybody who had colds or sniffles or anything but me. Left me sitting there 9 hours with a broken elbow in emergency. Most ridiculous thing. Anyway, I don't know what their reason was. So in the middle of all that, and I think that's when I decided to drive cross country with a broken elbow and meet people, which I did, and it was fun. And I took a month across and a month back, so I literally took 2 months off. And I had saved up the money to do it, and I bought a bunch of stuff and came home and sold. And I started selling to the movie industries and making a little bit of money there. So I'm going to stop right here because this could be really long. And I did talk about some of the movies I've worked with. And I did talk about Keanu Reeves, but I didn't say his name, and I guess I should have put his name in the video. I just said a homeless guy. He was playing a homeless guy character, and he came in looking like a homeless guy. Anyway, some of my first videos are telling you about people I met doing the shows, and I will get more into that a little bit later. But I thought I'd just start talking about Afterworld and the adventures that I start having. Thank you for watching. Please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe. And I'm trying to do my videos better. That one video I did, vertical, was just, I lost like 7 subscribers. Don't give up on me, guys. Once in a while I get a little nutty. So I'll talk to you later. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Camo.